Oh, what's going on, Gameweeper? This is ChoGath, and today we're going to be talking about the 15 best and worst champions of 11.14. So these 15 champions have been affected most by the patch changes. And because there were a lot of changes and a lot of big changes as well, this is a video you certainly don't want to miss. And let me just say that there are some very interesting picks in here and some champions that are going to cause a lot of commotion just because of how much better they have become. Now, speaking of getting better, you guys have to check out the GameWeep.com website if you want to improve for Challenger champion courses, guides, and videos that are made by the best to help you become one of the best. You've got to join thousands of your fellow summoners who are frothing the content, so sign up for that exclusive access to up to 20 videos a week. Links in the description and comment section. Alright, so let's go through these 15 champions, guys, and the first one I want to talk about is Nocturne. And Nocturne's win rate has decreased by close to 1% this patch, and this is all because of that change to your passive sustain. So if you're playing lane Nocturne in the mid or top lane, you are going to be healing less when you hit enemy minions. Now, this is kind of important for your sustain because enemy champions are going to have more of a window, if you like, to kill you. But for the most part, you still have so much strength as Nocturne in terms of your wave clear, in terms of your setup, in terms of your ultimate with Stridebreaker, and even with Stridebreaker's nerf, so the slow is back down to 40% instead of 90% decaying, his win rate is still a ridiculous 54% at least. So there's no reason to stop playing him, so if Nocturne is not banned, guys, on your champ select, please lock him in. Now, the next champion we have to talk about is Graves. And this patch, because Graves' base AD went up by 2, this is important for your early game. Now, Graves is one of the best scalers in the game, right? Like, once you get to 3-4 items, you can start one-shotting people. But in the early game, it is kind of annoying, especially to clear camps like Raptors, Wolves, and Krugs, because there are multiple monsters here, and you don't really have the AoE, like an Udyr, like a Rumble. You're pretty slow compared to these guys, but an AD buff does mean that you're going to clear your camps a little quicker, and in terms of your early game prowess, if you like when you do gank and 1v1 champions for Scuttle Crabs, etc., you do have that damage you need to be more of a threat. And let's not forget that this base AD does help with your Q and ult in particular, and this has seen Graves' win rate increase by almost 1% this patch. So a pretty decent jungle pick, but yeah, there probably are still better picks out there. Now, a bit like Nocturne, guys, one champion who isn't really enjoying this patch as much because of the Stridebreaker change is Set, and that is the sole reason. The slow is not 90% anymore, it's just 40%, so if you do engage onto the enemy team, they have a lot better chance of escaping now because the slow isn't as impactful, right? And even in the laning phase, when you do actually get to Stridebreaker, this mythic power spike isn't as strong anymore. So if you're against a champion like Fiora, who's really good at the moment, or Riven with Gore Drinker, if you're against a Camille with Divine Sundra, these champions are just better. And in terms of the Stridebreaker champions, you're probably off just picking Darius or even Garen. And this has seen Set's win rate decrease by almost 1% this patch as well. Now, coming in next is Shaco. And for Shaco this patch, some meme nerfs came in. So your base movement speed went down by 5, and your base HP went down. Now, the movement speed isn't really going to mean that much. You're probably still going to be able to get the kills you were getting in this patch, but the base HP does matter. So after that first jungle clear, you're going to be lower and more killable when you do make that first gank or you fight around the Scuttle Crab. There is just less bars for the enemy champions to get through. Now, it's nothing major, but it is a bit of a dent in the win rate department, but he's still viable AD or AP. Now, I'm putting two tank top laners together here, guys, coming in next, and these are Ornn and ChoGath, and these two have both improved significantly in this patch by over 1%, and the big reason why is just because Stridebreaker has been heavily nerfed, so the slow, as I've already said twice, down from 90% to 40%, this is huge. So if you are playing a tank top lane into like a Darius, into a Set, into a Garen, these matchups are less scary because they don't have that kill threat and setup anymore, and this allows these two tank top laners, who are some of the best scalers in the game, to actually scale now and help their team get to that 30-minute mark and then win. So Ornn and ChoGath come in at number 11. Now, starting off the top 10, guys, by the way, if you're enjoying this little countdown we do where we talk about the win rates from each patch, let us know by leaving a like down below. And coming in at number 10 is Singed, and Singed has improved this patch. And this might be a little weird because Singed hasn't really improved this patch. I mean, Deadman's got buffed, but you're not really building that all that much. So how does this work? And the reason for this, guys, is because Riot have finally bug fixed the interaction between your W and your fling, where you fling someone into your mega adhesive, and if they are flinged into your W, they finally get rooted. This wasn't happening before, they were just getting grounded, which means they can move, but now they're getting rooted. Singed becomes an even better lane to game 4, and a lot scarier when he's roaming around the map and in team fights as well. So before you actually fling your opponent, put your W down where you're going to fling them, and they will get rooted now properly. Now, up next on the countdown, guys, coming in at number 9 is Vi, and Vi has seen more play this patch and a better patch as well in terms of win rate, and the reason for this is quite simple: Divine Sundra. And I'm sure we all know how good Divine Sundra is by now, and for a bruiser DPSer just like Vi, it is just ideal. And this has seen her win rate, because Divine Sundra has now become the go-to mythic item, increased by over 1% this patch. And I should also mention here that because of the jungle changes, if you are playing one of these ganking junglers, the clear speed is a little less relevant. Now, in higher elo, it still does matter, but in lower elos, you can pick Vi and actually get away with just perma ganking, and with Divine Sundra, it's a perfect harmony. So Vi comes in at number 9, improving in 11.14. 11-14. Now, another champion who has improved is Taric, and Taric got directly buffed this patch. So your mana cost for your Q and your E are both down, and this is super useful because Taric has one of the smallest mana pools in the early game on the Rift, so your spells are actually costing less mana. This is great. This means you can stay in lane without banking all the time after one round of cooldowns, so it has helped in that department, but not enough because Taric mains are still buying tier on their first base or one of their early bases, so the mana cost is still a little bit too high. So if Riot were to increase your mana pool next patch, that would be ideal, but Taric has improved regardless in 11-14. Now, another stride breaker abuser, guys, who isn't feeling it this patch or not really feeling it is Urgot. And for Urgot, because you don't have that slow as powerful as it once was, for a champion that really needs that stickiness to stay on enemy champions, especially AD carries in the late game, because you can get kited so much, even in the laning phase. If you're against a Quinn, yeah, it's pretty much GG now. Like, you really need that slow as much as possible, and now it's just 14%. There really isn't that much danger in the top lane against Urgot. Not to mention that in recent times, Titanic Hydra has been nerfed, Black Cleaver has been nerfed, and the new Hullbreaker item, yes, it is really good on Urgot in the split push, but because Stride Breaker is a lot less scary now, and there's no dash, remember, he is a heck of a lot easier to deal with, and his win rate has gone down over 1% in 11-14. Now, one top laner who is a little happier this patch is Alawi, and it did look like a bit of a meme buff, right? Your movement speed increasing by 10, but this is actually really nice for Alawi, because as Alawi, right, when you do fight enemy champions, normally you're just standing still and letting those tentacles do all the work. But now, because you have a bit more movement speed, you're able to kite skill shots, you're able to get in more advantageous positions to fight and throw your tentacles out. And this has seen her win rate increase by over 1.5% so far this patch. So if you are going to play a champion, especially in lower elos, Alawi is one of the best to pick, especially with how good Divine Sunderer is. Now, another champion in the top lane, guys, I'm sorry, most of this list is top lane, I swear. But yes, coming in next is a champion who has been affected by Stride Breaker getting nerfed, and this is Garen. But the thing for Garen is, guys, that he got directly buffed, and this has seen his win rate increase by over 1.5%. So what's happened is that your Q's bonus movement speed has increased, so when you press your Q, you're getting more movement speed, and your ultimate's damage based on your target's missing health has increased as well. So basically in the top lane, what these two changes mean is that you've got more gap closing potential, so you can actually get to those melee and ranged champions and fight them, and also your level 6 threat and your level 11 and level 16 threat is just greater, especially in the late game when enemy champions are going to have some HP in their kit one way or another. This means that you are just bringing down more Demacian justice. So Garen comes in at number 5. Now, another top laner, or a support even, who has improved this patch is Tahm Kench, and Tahm Kench's win rate has improved by almost 2%. And for Tahm Kench this patch, guys, yes, your heal in the late game is down, but in the early game it's a lot stronger. Your Q, so when you lash that tongue at an opponent in the bot lane, dealing a lot more damage, therefore you have more poke, and also kill potential as well if you get them low enough. And you also have to bust your ultimate and your W now, especially if you actually hit enemy champions with your W, you're going to get more of that cooldown back. And I actually like the changes as well. The fact that you do have some kill pressure now and some like dive potential, because other melee supports in the bot lane, if you think of Nautilus, Leona, they have that gap closer, right? They can jump in. Well, Tahm Kench never really had this. So now you have this in your W, you always pose a kill threat. Just make sure to use this from Fog, you know, so the enemy champions don't expect it, and you can actually dumpster in the bot lane now. You don't just have to sit back and peel your ADC. Now let's head to the jungle, guys, for the next 2 picks. And one champion who has been buffed this patch is Rexxar. So both forms of your Q, unburrowed and burrowed, these are dealing more damage. And seeing as this is the spell that you are maxing first, your kill pressure in the early game is even higher now, and this has seen Rexxar's win rate improve by 2.5%. And this is even coming after the Prowler's Claw nerf, where you can only Prowler's Claw to an enemy champion. So if you want someone to dominate the early game and start snowballing like crazy, Rexxar honestly might even be the best jungler to pick. But let's say you don't want to play an AD oppressive early game jungler, but you still want to play a jungler who has pressure on the map. Well, you guys will be happy to know that the new Lilia changes that came in have improved her win rate, get this, by over 3% this patch. How crazy is that? But even though Lilia's win rate, guys, has improved by almost 3.5% as well this patch, here's the thing. In lower elos, because your late game and scaling are better, and because you're going to hit that spike in most games in lower elos, this is a good thing. But in higher elos, especially in Master and above, and as you get to Challenger, the early game is really what decides games. Like, the game length in higher elos is a lot shorter than what it is in lower elos, right? So as Lilia, because now your early game is even worse because of your increased clear speed, your early game ganks really aren't that great. Even when you get your ultimate, they're still kind of lackluster. And now the lower movement speed as well, this just makes you an all-round bad pick in higher elo, even worse than what you were before. But in lower elo, because you are going to get to like 3-4 items in most games, Lilia is for sure in a better spot, but she's practically dead in higher elos. Now, the last champion we have to talk about, guys, in terms of win rate is Aurelia. And if you guys don't already know, Aurelia is legit busted again. And this is seen in her win rate increasing by 3.5%. Now, a bit like Lilia, her win rate in lower elos has improved drastically. In higher elo, it has improved a little bit, but not by much. But the fact is, guys, in lower elo, she's just so much more forgiving to play. Now you only need 4 passive stacks to access your Ionian Fervor. Your Q's cooldown is decreased each time you get a point in your ultimate, so at 6, 11, and 16, your Q's cooldown is down, so if you do mess up your Q, there's a bit more compensation here. Landing your E, the fact that you can still E while dashing in your Q, this mechanic is so important to Aurelia and it's still in the game. And the fact your W now blocks magic damage means that against mages, you are even stronger. So if there was ever a time to pick Aurelia, guys, and learn her, it is this patch. And I am expecting some nerfs to come just because I think it's that broken. Let me know what you think, guys, in the comments, especially for the new Aurelia changes and the rest of the champions on this list and the buffs and nerfs that came in 11.14. And until tomorrow's video, remember to check out the GameLeap.com website, by the way, for all your League of Legends needs. This has been the Jizz. Bye.